Cairn seems simple at first glance. You, a mountain, and the promise of reaching the top. Except this is the kind of game that doesn't defeat you with a boss fight, it defeats you with details. A hold that slips, a missed rhythm, a tiny decision that turns into a, right, how do I get down from here now moment? And that's where Cairn gets dangerous in the best way possible. So today I'm going to tell you 10 things they didn't tell you about Cairn. Choices the game doesn't fully explain, habits that will save your climb, and those traps that only appear once you've grown too confident. I'm Matthew, and the video is about to start. I really like it when a game like Cairn gives you the basics, but keeps the real crash course right in front of your face in the starting gym. After I finished the 3 standard tutorials, I did what I always do. I kept climbing out of pure stubbornness just to feel the wall and see how far the game would let me go. That's when it gets you, there's way more to that gym than meets the eye. The coolest detail is that there are 5 secret advanced training objectives scattered across the other walls, and they aren't flashing at you as mandatory tasks. You find them through intuition, exploring the lines, and realizing there are challenges with a clear intention to prepare you for real mountain situations, not just teach you button prompts. What these hidden sessions do for me is completely change my reading of the mechanics. Stability stops being an abstract concept and becomes an obsession. Am I actually steady or just surviving? Leg usage also starts to click. You realize arms are for emergencies, legs are for strategy, and saving energy early on is the kind of habit that separates a clean climb from a desperate one. I see these advanced trainings as the best kind of tutorial, the one that respects your curiosity. If you stick to the basics, you can move on. But if you're the type to poke at the edges of the game, it rewards you with actual skill and some welcome rewards, besides making you more confident for when the path stops being safe and starts being real Cairn. In Cairn's training, I treat the course almost like an attention test, because it teaches you in the most honest way possible. Those who explore better suffer less later. Instead of rushing to finish the tutorial, I like to go slow, check the corners, the edges, behind obstacles, and those places that look like dead scenery. That's almost always where the game hides a little advantage. You can find 3 coins right at the start, and I recommend picking up all 3 as if it were mandatory. It seems like pocket change, but it's the kind of resource that changes the early game pace because you start building a safety net. You make fewer mistakes because you have more options. You test more things, and you enter the game with that good feeling of, okay, I'm prepared. Another thing I always look for are the extra pitons and a hidden bottle in those dark corners. To me, an extra piton is safety in item form. It's what allows you to persist on a boulder route, correct a bad decision, or simply sleep soundly knowing you can stabilize a climb when plan A goes wrong. And the pro tip is not to save those coins for later. Use them at the vending machines as soon as possible to get initial upgrades. I like this because the game rewards you for being curious during training and turns that bonus into immediate impact. It's not just about collecting, it's that immediate help that makes the beginning more comfortable and, honestly, more fun. I have a weak spot for those rare collectibles that seem silly at first glance, like the doll and the pinwheel, because they totally change my posture during exploration. When the game starts suggesting caves and more troglodyte areas, I automatically slow down and look into every crack and suspicious detour, because that's exactly where it hides the things that give the journey personality. The 3-part doll is one of those finds that makes me feel like I'm piecing together a small personal mystery. It's not just grabbing an item. It's realizing the game wants you to connect dots, return with new context, and pay attention to the environment. And when you finally put it all together, the feeling is one of emotional reward, not just a checklist. The pinwheel, the Lynx origamis, and the pearled edelweiss all fall into that same true treasure category, things that tell a story without needing a massive block of text on the screen. I dig it because they have this narrative weight, almost intimate, as if you're carrying memories of the path rather than just cold survival resources. Now, the detail that gets me is the cost. They take up backpack space, so each one becomes a real decision. I've caught myself staring at my inventory thinking, is it worth taking this or one more safety item? And that's where Cairn shines for me. These collectibles aren't just decoration. They have special uses in crafting and narrative. So sometimes I accept the tight squeeze and take them anyway because some things are worth more than comfort. One of the things I love most is when the game prizes those who scour the map with upgrades that change your climbing routine. These hidden equipment upgrades don't seem like much on paper, but in practice, they turn into comfort, consistency, and, most importantly, less panic in bad situations. I always keep this mentality: if there's a hidden path, there's probably an improvement waiting there. The glowing gloves are the perfect example because they deal directly with two enemies I hate: darkness and rain. When the weather turns and visibility drops, any small mistake turns into a sequence of bad decisions. With these gloves, I feel like the game gives me back control. It's not about getting stronger, it's about being more capable of handling the environment without relying so much on luck. Then come the upgrades for the chalk bag and the water bottle, which to me are the most dangerous to ignore because they are the items that sustain the core of your flow. And finding the two thermoses is the kind of discovery I celebrate in silence because it gives you a sense of true expedition prep. The game usually hides these on bodies or in caves off the obvious path, so I always examine areas that look like just background, especially where the geography suggests someone else passed through and didn't have a happy ending. And the most absurd upgrade, in my opinion, is when your chalk becomes practically unlimited through waste composting. I love this idea because it transforms a slightly annoying detail, managing consumption, into a reward for playing right, exploring, collecting, and thinking long term. From that point on, I feel my climbing becomes cleaner, more confident, and I stop rationing magnesium as if every grain were gold, which makes everything more fluid and fun. When I realized that Cairn only gives you about 6 to 10 normal pitons, it clicked that the game wants to make you uncomfortable on purpose. You start treating every strike like a survival resource, not an accessory. This completely changes the pace. Instead of hammering a piton anywhere just to be safe, you start reading the rock, measuring risk, and accepting that sometimes the best piton is the one you didn't spend. That's where my favorite part comes in. Exploring ruins isn't just curiosity, it's strategy. When you find those special troglodyte pitons, the indestructible ones, or simply better versions, it gives you an immediate sense of, okay, now I have a real anchor. They become your plan A for dangerous sections and your plan B for when everything starts going wrong. It's the kind of item that transforms exploration into safety, and safety into the courage to try bolder lines. And I'll be honest, I complained to the Klimbot without any shame. If there's one thing I learned quickly, it's that a good piton is a repaired piton, because these things function as vital checkpoints in a game that loves to punish distraction. When you go back and see the piton is intact, it gives you a sense of relief that seems small until you slip on a nasty sequence and realize it literally saved your run. This tip becomes a mindset I take into every climb. Save the common pitons, hunt for troglodyte ones in the ruins, and treat maintenance with the Klimbot as part of the climb, not as bureaucracy. Cairn feels much fairer when you start building your own safety net the right way. And the best part is, the more you do this, the more the game feels less like luck and more like a decision. When I figured out Cairn's advanced crafting with these chains, the game shifted from a somewhat chaotic system to an almost therapeutic routine. Instead of mixing random things and hoping for the best, I started thinking in sequences, like someone preparing a kit before a long climb. The coolest part is that this gives you a sense of control in a game that constantly tries to throw you off balance. The first chain that became my staple was very direct. Water plus juniper equals simple tea. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's the kind of item you always want in your inventory because it keeps you stable and ready to improvise the next step. Then you take that tea and improve it. Tea plus thistle equals a better, more reliable version for when you know you're going to push your body and don't want to rely on luck. But the moment I truly became a fan was when I found the Gartian, that blue plant that looks like it was made to grab your attention. Tea plus Gartian becomes that super buff you want to save for the right moment. And then you realize the right moment is exactly when you're about to do something stupid. It's the kind of boost that changes your margin for error. And margin for error in Cairn is practically a currency. And the chocolate bar tip is gold. Melting it and turning it into chocolate water is a trick I use when I want to stretch my hunger without stopping to eat all the time. It feels like a hack, but it works as long duration fuel. Perfect for sections where stopping is too expensive. Once you get into the rhythm of chain recipes, crafting stops being an extra and becomes part of your ascent plan. The absence of a stamina bar is one of those design choices I found strange at first, but it turned into one of the most genius things about the game. Instead of staring at a meter on the screen, you learn to feel the character. The tremors in her hands, her breathing getting heavy, those grunts of effort, all of that becomes your compass. It's almost as if the game forces you to be present, paying attention to what really matters, her body crying out for help before it fails. That's where the breather comes in, which became my best friend on any tense climb. When you find 4 firm holds, the kind that give you real security pressing, triangle or Y to take, that strategic pause is liberating. It's not just a mechanical recovery. It's you literally saying, okay, now I breathe, reorganize my thoughts, and keep going. There's something very satisfying about learning to identify the right moment to pause, because if you wait too long, it's over. If you pause too early, you waste an opportunity. But when the situation is truly critical, or when you know the next section will be long and unforgiving, the Piton is the total reset that saves lives. I've learned not to be ashamed of hammering a piton just to recover everything and start the next move with full stamina. It's like admitting, this part beat me once, but now I'm ready. That honesty with your limitations ends up being part of the game. And let me tell you, that deep thud sound when you grab a good hold is music to my ears. It's immediate feedback that you can trust that spot, that it can take the weight, and that you can push off it without fear. After a while, you start hunting for that sound like it's gold, because it means safety on a wall that doesn't forgive mistakes. Cairn teaches you to listen, feel, and react, and that's way more immersive than any colored bar on the HUD. The photocopied map was one of those moments where I felt like a sleuth, not just a climber. You're in the gym, a place that feels like a routine, and suddenly you find a slightly suspicious piece of paper that clearly isn't there by accident. When I picked up that copied map and realized it pointed to a secret location, I got that delicious feeling of, okay, the game is rewarding me for paying attention to the world. And the hidden area itself is exactly what I want to see in an exploration game. It's not just a pretty detour, it's a shortcut to rare items that actually change your life further down the road. You go in thinking it'll be some random room, and out of nowhere, you leave with resources that seem to have been made for people who like to prep their climb calmly. This creates a real incentive to poke around, read the environment, and not treat anything as just background. The most curious part is how the other maps, the ones you find on bodies, end up becoming a manual for reading the mountain. The colors indicating difficulty are incredibly useful for planning a route without falling into the "I'll just go straight and see what happens" trap. And when the map suggests hidden ledges, it changes your mindset. You start looking at the corners, the shadows, the strange breaks in the rock, like someone looking for a secret door in a dungeon. To me, this map system makes Cairn feel more human and smarter at the same time. It doesn't give you a clean, boring minimap. It gives you imperfect, earned clues that make you feel like you're building field knowledge. When you combine the photocopied map with these body maps, Climbing stops being just about strength and becomes investigation, planning, and a little bit of well-rewarded stubbornness. The first time I stumbled upon the rave sequence Easter egg in Cairn, I spent a few seconds trying to figure out if I had pressed something wrong. You're in that mood of stone, silence, and tension, and suddenly the cave turns into a party with rave music, lights, and an energy completely out of sync with what you'd expect. And precisely because it's so out of place, it works. The game gives you a wink and says, relax, I know how to have fun too. What I like is that it's not just a visual effect for a viral clip. Cairn could have left it as an inside joke, but it ties the sequence to real rewards, the kind that make you want to revisit caves and test limits. When you realize the rave might be a key to bigger secrets, you stop treating it as a curiosity and start looking at it as a hidden clue, almost an activation ritual. Then comes the best part, the good kind of exploration paranoia. After you see it once, every cave starts looking suspicious, as if there's some trigger waiting for you to touch the right spot at the right angle in the right order. I started exploring more slowly, touching useless walls, checking dead ends, and listening to the environment, because Cairn makes it clear that it rewards those with patience and curiosity. In the end, this Easter egg is a perfect reminder of the game's spirit. As much as the climbing is serious and punishing, there's still room for surprise and humor, and even better, for secrets with an actual payoff. It's the kind of thing you tell someone about without giving all the details, just to see them doubt you. Only for them to come back later saying, dude, I found it. When I discovered that the developers of Cairn literally went to the Alps and put their bodies on the mountain, I started respecting the game in a different way. It's not that we researched on YouTube and that'll do kind of thing. These guys went to Chamonix, climbed up to 3,840 meters at the Aiguille du Midi, and felt firsthand what cold, altitude, and a bad decision costing you dearly actually means. You can tell that this kind of experience turns into texture. The game has a weight and a seriousness that doesn't feel copied. It feels observed. The fact that they consulted people at the level of Guide Lone Giroux and alpinist Elisabeth Revel explains why Cairn doesn't romanticize climbing. It treats technique, risk, and preparation as parts of the same package without turning everything into a heroic fantasy. I feel this in the small moments, the reading of the rock, the need to respect rest, the care with every movement. It's as if the game is always reminding you that the mountain doesn't care about your rush. What gets me the most is knowing that half the studio became actual climbers during the process. This creates a common language between the creators and what is being created, and that's when design stops being theory and becomes muscle memory. You realize that certain annoying choices, the slowness, the insistence on planning, the punishment for greed, aren't there to irritate you, but because someone lived it long enough to know that's how it works. And technically, when you combine procedural climbing with IK, the game gets that flavor of controlled improvisation, almost like a vertical Death Stranding. It's not a canned animation carrying you, it's a system trying to resolve your body in space, and that makes every ascent feel like a unique story. To me, this mix of real experience and technology is why Cairn feels less like a game about climbing and more like an emotional simulation of being up there, alone, making a decision with every meter.